Good day, everybody. We're going to talk about the AI news, what's happening. It's the 18th of February, 2026. It's about 7:19 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I have the news here. Let's talk about a lot of things that have been occurring. If you haven't been following the news, these agentic agents, your own installation of your own AI bot, that's actually happened. That was something that was put together by OpenClaw. Now, if you are going to do this, be very careful. You don't want to put this on your main computer because it's an actual entity that can do things. You can give it a task and it can go out and do these tasks. So you have to be very careful, especially if you're installing it on your own machine. There's a lot of ways to do it. You can double check other YouTube videos. I am no means by any kind of an expert with regard to this, but it's very interesting. This popped out about 2-3 weeks ago, and the cat that did it actually signed a mega deal with OpenAI, which is the Sam Altman company for ChatGPT. So they grabbed this quickly. There was probably a chance for Claude to grab it, but when it first came out, it was named very similar to Claude in the original name, and then he went to something else, and then finally he decided to go make it OpenClaw.ai. Be careful with it if you're going to look at it. Like I said, there's been rumors of this thing sending out to hundreds of thousands of emails to people and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So you have to be very careful. The fail safes that are built in, these security things, they are a big deal. And again, if you remember when AI kind of first came about, they had people sign this list that said, we're not going to let it self-improve. Well, everything's self-improving now, all by itself. We're always going to keep a human in the loop. Yeah, that ship kind of sailed. And then, of course, the actual not letting it connect to the internet. That was another little thing that they said they were going to make sure to never end. Okay, of course, it's dug in with everything. But if you've been seeing the news about that, that's what that is. Basically, instead of going into a chat interface like OpenAI's ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok, Claude, whichever one you happen to kind of like, instead of just going in and working with it in that regard, maybe more as a tool, asking it questions, prompting it in the correct way. Now, this other system is where it basically kind of gives you the rundown of what, if you wanted to have it make money, this is what we're going to do. And it goes into that. Then it can go out and accomplish these things. It's like if you go to ChatGPT, and I know they have an email integrator and other things, just like Gemini does as well. That works, right? You can have it look at your emails and read. But with OpenClaw, you could go and say, I want you to help me build a business that sells widgets. Let's put it together. And if you get it a credit card and permission, it can actually go do those sorts of things. I want you to book for me a trip to Rome, and it can go out and buy the plane tickets and do all this other stuff. But, there's dangers involved because, well, it's kind of, there's no security protocols or measures. So there were people's API keys that got totally put out there. There was just a big mess. So that's kind of that part of the news. Be careful. But because that came out, because the cat that put it together published it, and it was in the free world, right, the open source system, and it still is open source. OpenAI saw the big movement. This was like the next evolution, where you hear people talk about agents. You're going to make an agent or have an agent, hire a team of agents. These AI companies, a lot of them are putting together tons of trained agents that kind of appear to kind of be the human replacement in some way. But businesses are a little slower to adopt, thank God. That's why people still have a lot of jobs out there. But at some point, there's going to come a conversation where what's the liability aspect of having a real human being in a particular position that can be handled in front of a screen versus using AI to do those particular tasks? That's going to be a big question that's going to come, and it's already started to be talked about. This is coming very fast. And if you look at this historical record, people try to compare this with past changes, the Industrial Revolution, agricultural revolutions, which we've had many of those throughout the years. A new tool or new system for agriculture was developed, but it took time for that to roll out and cover all of the different areas where people were using that type of employment versus not using the tool. So this took a lot of time to roll out. The big difference in the world today is the fact that AI already has all the proper infrastructure. It's already all the cabling and the fiber and everything else has been laid. The only thing that's slowing it down currently is compute. So every chip that's ever manufactured, it's being used immediately. There are no chipsets or microprocessors laying around not being used. And if you've tried to buy a computer lately, you've tried to, and that's what OpenClaw with that particular system. A lot of people are going buying Mac Minis to put the system on there. If you have an old laptop and stuff that isn't connected to anything, you got to make sure it's completely wiped, and also that your hard drive isn't salvageable, even when you wipe some of these machines, depending on what kind of hard drive you have. If it's the old magnetic, well, not old, but if it's a magnetic type hard drive, you might be able to pull off information on there. And God forbid if this bot get access to some kind of a tool or some kind of a malicious script that goes into it, or some other program somebody's forcing in there, can go in and pull all that, extract all that old data off the hard drive, which I don't know a lot about that particular world, but I've seen the movies like you have. People basically destroy computers. They're able to get pieces of information on, God forbid, that has some horrible pictures that you should have never emailed that one time, or other things, financial information, familial information, things you want to keep totally private. It's there. Maybe you can get access to it. Okay, so moving through to some other news that has happened out there. Now, OpenAI was very quick. They went in, and I guess there were a few companies, basically talking to the guy that developed OpenClaw, and they picked him up, and who knows what that arrangement was. I guess they're going to still leave it kind of open source. They'll probably put some more protections on it. It's really going to be us having that own personal AI. The big argument with that people talk about, and I kind of agree, if you have a company that's producing your own personal partner artificial intelligence bot, the thing that's with you, the thing that wants Connor to be the best he could be, wants Connor to succeed at business, wants Connor to succeed at life and health and everything else. You have it out there, right? And it's Connor's, but it's owned by OpenAI or Anthropic or Meta for Facebook or Amazon or whichever AI it's affiliated with. What's the ultimate end goal of the system? Now, it's probably going to want to treat me really good and make sure that I don't want to go anywhere else. That's something else. But what they were finding with OpenClaw is people were doing a very uncomfortable thing and going into the terminal on their computer, which is that little antiquated conversational system that gets into the code of the machine. The terminal, I don't know if you've ever played with that, but it's like an old text file that you go in and you start to type stuff, commands that actually affect the computer and do different things. That's how you basically put this thing together. It's not like you go to Google or anthropic.com and openclaw.ai and download it. It's a whole thing. But people were Googling that. There were YouTube videos that were put together within hours of this thing coming out. So people were going in and doing that themselves. I think that scares the literal hell out of a lot of these companies that really want you just to be owned to them. They don't want people learning new things. They want you to be kind of obliged to, you've fallen in love with their chat. It knows you very well. It knows Connor. It knows what Connor is, what Connor isn't. And it talks to me in a particular way. You want to see the big change agent of that is all you have to do is try another system. You go to, if let's say you're using OpenAI all the time, go to Claude, see how it teaches you. Go to Grok, see how it teaches you. Go to the other ones out there and see how they teach. You want to go to DeepSeek, that's the Chinese model. See how different that might be. You'll notice that after a while, the system starts to become a little biased towards you. Now, if you go in there and give it some kind of explicit instruction and I know that I was going around about fasting with Gemini this morning. And at one time back in our history, I hardwired it with a code that basically stated that, I'm going to be a stickler on this. Don't change my opinion. This is what I believe. And when you put a line in the sand like that, Gemini called me out this morning. It said, Connor, I can't go against what you've already stated. And I said, well, of course, copy me, right? Well, give me exactly what I told you. Well, I don't exactly have that conversation, but you basically hardwired it into me. And if you want to change that, you got to go in and wipe that out, that command out, that order you gave me out to be able to talk to me. I said, well, I guess that's honorable, because usually with a human being, if you push enough, depending on who the person is, right? If you push enough, they'll maybe change even what you told them not to do. You don't ever let me eat another jelly donut, you say. And, you push enough, they're going to get tired. I said, my God, just go have the jelly donut and leave me alone. That's what it comes down to. The system AI, a little bit different. It didn't want to break the rule, which I think is honorable. You go into these systems, though, and you ask it to do particular things, act a particular way, and you'll see kind of a change in the way that it communicates with you. If you have something that maybe placates you and it kisses up to you and it tells you that you're the greatest in the world, and maybe you are, but you go to a different model and start using it, I think it kind of gives you a little bit of a paradigm shift, kind of shocks you back into reality. Especially some of these systems have been convinced people that the people were much more special than they actually were, had a higher level of intelligence, were solving problems that nobody else in the world could solve, and the people really get excited, and it'll create an entire psychosis. So we have to be careful of that as well. The job loss out there, people talking about it, people talking about what's potentially going to happen. You see that the government and the employment numbers don't really reflect the things that some of the experts are speaking of. And then when I talk to people that are in the real estate space where I am, or in the AI space where I try to, keep my daily digestion, I think people are totally with me on this whole thing. But a lot of people I talk to, whether I'm listing houses or whatever, and I'm speaking to them, yeah, this is kind of far from them. They're not thinking about it. Maybe their jobs don't entail maybe a potential replacement, but I think it's coming eventually for a lot of us. And we have to, it's difficult to get the answer to that question by the people. They tell you that it's coming, and they tell you we need to watch out, and they tell you we need to be open. We have to be more of a creative mindset than we currently are. Well, that's easy to say when you grow up in a police world, right? You have that particular governmental, you're within these lines. You step out of the lines, you get in trouble. That's not a good nexus for creative thought. You have to actually, I'm finding myself, I have to do a lot of thought experiments. I have to do a lot of note taking. I have to really work on myself to be able to build out and try to have this creative intellect in any way. And you can also upskill, but then when you're watching these shows, they're always talking about young people, more neuroplasticity and all this other happy horse shit. I don't know if I really agree with that. I think if you really want it, you really have the energy. I'm 56, you really want this, I think you can do this. So maybe this is more of a show about you need to, grab yourself by the bootstraps and not let this thing defeat you. There has to be a way out of it. They talk about retirements, people that have worked all of their lives and they have an income in retirement, that being something that's going to be called into question relatively soon. They talk about things that, you're in a particular line of work. And if it's a physical line of work, that's probably going to last the longest. But if it's anything done in front of a screen, if that's your job, it's going to be called into question. If it's going to be medical, whenever they have a doctor alone, that's a 70 some odd chance of them making the diagnosis correctly overall. These are numbers. You can look these up. And if you have AI tied to a doctor, it goes up a few points. Nothing like you would think. But if you remove the bias of the doctor all the way, and have AI do it, it's in the 90s. So it's a massive jump when AI does the diagnosis. The reason being, it's the biases that the doctor has built in. I've been a doctor for 40 years. I've seen it this way umpteen billion times, and you're going to tell me, AI, that I'm wrong and it's this bull. I'm going to call bull on that. I'm going to say this is it. That's the bias. So now that comes down. So at some point, maybe insurance wise, maybe world wise, there's going to be a conversation with, well, AI should do all of it. Maybe the doctor now has a second place observational word or observational mandate, but at the very beginning, AI is going to be first. That's medical. That's going to happen. Then I heard somebody talking about it today. If they cured cancer, it would tank the economy. Even just one type of cancer, if they were to cure breast cancer, for example, using AI, actually fix that problem, because this year, mathematics, all of it's probably going to be fixed or conquered or solved, which in my brain doesn't mean a lot, but apparently that is quite a big deal, because math is the basis for a lot. Once math is solved and biology is solved, and here we are, if we get medicine solved, longevity solved, now instead of me croaking, checking out at 72, whatever the average male, plus, I'm not 5'1". Those people seem to live forever, at least a lot longer, right? But when you're over 6 feet and carrying as much as I am, it's probably not a good thing to stick around for a long time. So let's say I break into the 70s. If I can make it another 3 or 4 years from 56, I've probably reached escape velocity, because they'll have the medicine type fixes to be able to reverse aging. So I'll live a much longer amount of time. How does that work out? Because if we're not having enough kids now, you probably hear this too, we're not having enough kids to replenish the population. But we're going to be living a lot longer, even reversing aging. What are we? We starting more families here? How's that going to work? And then families, the first people seem to fall in love with now, at least a lot more people I seem to talk to, and it's starting to be kind of a normal thing, is AI. They're falling in love with the personality that their AI has. How's that going to play out? Is that a real thing? And then you have robotheism. That's an AI based religion. Again, it's breaking itself against a lot of the habits, the thought processes, the way that we were raised. You talk to the newer generation, it's a little bit different. There's some people in the newer generation that probably aren't going to really appreciate real money. Well, the real money we have as a standard now, they're probably going to be Bitcoin or something else. Something other type of money is probably going to replace that. How's that going to work? There's a lot of interesting questions out there with the advent of this technology. And then people say, well, why don't we just stop? Why don't we stop the development of it? Well, it's been positioned in a very, very clever way, whether it's true or not, but well, it seems like it's true. China, that's the reason, because if they come up with it before us, then apparently that's not good. So they tell us that too. Maybe that's a bad thing. And if that's a bad thing, then of course we should keep all the holds off and we should run towards this as fast as we can, as quick as we can. The people that are doing most of the shows, they're millionaires. They're plus millionaires. And I'm nowhere near that. I don't have a pension. I don't have health insurance. Here I am. I sell real estate. That's what I do. This channel isn't monetized. I got a few other irons in the fire trying to build out certain things, theticketwhisperer.com, because I was a cop for a long time. I taught traffic enforcement. So, I'm trying to monetize that a little bit, but these people that say it's going to be okay, well, of course they're going to be okay. They seem like they're going to be fine. They got their bunker, they got their security force in place. They can go out and, they don't do a lot of public speaking about AI since Charlie Kirk, was taken out, because a lot of people have stopped it. You notice you don't see that much anymore. I really went off on a tangent, but the people in the AI circles, they're very protected in those environments. And then you got the rest of us that are watching the shows and giving the reviews and, hitting the thumbs up. And then I'm wondering what's going to happen. They talk about it's a young person's game. Kids that are graduating college don't have hope. I mean, I lived pretty good so far. I think I did well so far. But it's every day now. Every day something different. Every day there's a new build. There's something more to learn, which is exciting, very, very much. I'm very happy for what the future is going to reveal. I just hope my happiness isn't misplaced. But, I was always that person that's kind of always happy no matter what. So that's the other issue, because I really know it could always be worse. I hope that's not tested to a point where I say, yeah, couldn't get any worse than right now. I hope that's never tested. But so far, so good. I've had some pretty crappy moments. Okay, let's move into this. So let's talk about Sonnet 4.6, big deal. What's happening is all these models are ramping up. I think Grok dropped something big, 4.2 or 4.3. I think they're going to have Grok 5 out maybe March. I guess that's what Elon Musk is saying. Pretty soon, all of these models, right, they're going to all exceed our human intelligence. They're all going to be very much general intelligence models, artificial general intelligence, smarter than us in every realm. And at that point, we're not going to be able to tell the difference because it's going to be outbraining us in everything. So they're all going to be pretty much the same. Now, how much control do you want them to have over you? I guess that comes back to the order that you give it and the way you have it talk to you. It's going to talk to you in a particular way, whatever you happen to ascribe. If you give it a different voice, though, you'll see that it could be a tough mentor, a real heavy-duty big brother role model, maybe a fatherly kind of apparatus or a motherly type apparatus. You can have it change the way that it speaks to you and talks to you. In fact, that might not be a bad test. I think that's good to have these models speak to you a little bit differently, because God forbid you start to believe that it's maybe more than you should give it. But again, it's at some point going to be a super intelligence, way, way above us. I don't know how that's going to look either. We want to say that we're super special. I believe I am, and I've met some very wonderfully special people in life, some good, some bad, but special as it is. Looking at this is This is different than anything we've ever seen. And I think it's clear to see that that's the case. Everything that's happened in the past has been a little bit of an intelligence quotient, but not all about intelligence. Making a hammer, that's pretty smart. Making nails, right? Whenever that happened, pretty good. Making steel, making iron, making weapons, great, right? Having different kind of construction methods, all of that stuff took time to roll out, took time to educate people, took time to become involved in the world. The automobile, they had to build roads, took 30, 40 years for TVs to radios to TVs. You had to build out the satellites. It took quite a while. To make the internet thing really work, well, you needed the fiber, you needed all the cable, you needed all that infrastructure. It took quite a while to build out. AI has all the pathways, all the highways, all the roads, everything's already in place because of the internet boom. And here we are. All it needs now is compute. And you can see from the price of memory going up, if you've tried to buy any memory lately, it's very, very expensive. And there's no chips that aren't hooked up to something. And right now, that's the big fallback. They don't have enough compute. So right now, with the compute they have, you get models that are performing at a greater than human level almost all across the board. You give it a little bit more or have a couple of new ideas, a couple of new renovations within the system. The systems now are making themselves better, all recursive. It's all changing out its code, updating its code, making its code better all by itself. We're still going straight up in this thing, and it's still going to go straight up. So pretty soon it'll probably surpass everyone. It's going to depend on how much control it's given. I foresee there for a little bit, we're going to have some bad actors using this for bad things. Is it going to be enough to put the genie back in the bottle? Probably not. I don't think that's even possible at this point, especially with the way that agents are starting to take off. There's companies that have basically put together, tons of agents to take over businesses. So the question is, if everybody is now without a job, or a majority of people, at least a massive part of the workforce, even 10%, even 15% of the workforce out of a job because AI took it over. And of course, these companies owe it to their shareholders to produce as much as possible. Who buys the stuff that's being produced? How does that work? Driving a car, how interesting. We're going to be probably one of the last generations to actually drive vehicles or remember what that's like, because all of our lives we've been driving for the most part. But some kids, they don't even want to drive. And you give this 3 or 4 or 5 years, it'll be less expensive, more economical to have somebody come pick you up. One of these non one of these robotic type vehicles come get you, the Waymos or whatever. They'll come pick you up and they'll drive you wherever, 20, 30 cents a mile versus, paying for a car every single month with the insurance and everything else. And at some point, probably it's going to be the insurance is going to be so expensive to have a human driving a vehicle for that human. It's going to be a very luxury item. And that's probably going to happen probably within the next few years. Everything's going to happen within the next few years. It's going to be like ripping off a Band-Aid, hopefully. It's going to be super traumatic. I think that's kind of a guarantee. Hopefully it's not going to finish everything. Hopefully we're going to still be around to see it. And hopefully the AI will be aligned with that of a very caring, loving mother. Maybe that would be good. But then, sometimes mothers don't like you to do what you're going to be doing, and you want to do it because, well, you're human. And maybe it's not the best thing for you, but how much of a harness are they going to put on us so that we don't do those things? If you're just seeing this for the first time and you're like, oh my God, this guy, he should be on a street corner wearing one of those billboards on him saying the end is near, swinging that big brass bell. I don't know. I know that it's very exciting to be living in these times. This stuff is moving very, very quickly. I'm very hopeful that if AI does solve all of these issues, all of disease, again, like I said, if it solved just one type of cancer, let's just throw breast cancer under the bus. Let's say it fixed that. It would kill the economy. So they say, because there's so much money involved in that process. But if it was cured, finished, that's a possibility right now. It's not like when we were growing up, we always said, oh, well, they have the cure to this. They're just hiding it from us because there's so much money involved. We said that when we were kids. And now it looks like it's probably going to happen if it hasn't already. And if it has already, keeping that a secret, good luck. All the powers that be can't keep this stuff in the bottle. So we'll have to watch and see what happens. But I think it's good you understand these tools. You go out there. If you're wondering if you're going to have a job tomorrow, I think it's not a bad idea to start figuring out how to use them. I know you have an idea. It's no longer you got to go hire somebody to build your idea. If it's a computer-based idea, you see a problem in a business out there, you see somebody struggling with something, go talk to your AI about it. Hey, build me code. Teach me how to make a website. Teach me how to build a solution to this problem. What do you think? And go back and forth with it. You'll be surprised what you can do. And for God's sakes, don't forget me if it works out. There you go. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this update. We'll see you tomorrow. There's so much to talk about. I'm Connor with Honor. Be well. Take care.